Hello, my name is Skiles. I'm a software engineering student at Brigham Young University, Idaho. And a couple months ago, I released a YouTube video showing off my progress in Unity, the game engine. And while I was making that video, and for ever since I made that video, I've been working with a group of developers making a 3D game in Unity. We're calling it the Ultimate Specimen. And to summarize the game a little bit, it's an FPS where the player is continually spawned inside of a procedurally generated labyrinth. And the point of the game is for the player to maneuver through this labyrinth, find the exit, and while they're trying to find the exit, monsters spawn in the labyrinth. So they're supposed to survive, to kill the monsters, and to not be killed. So I will be going over what I did over the last couple months for the game. I will not be going over what I did because a lot of what I did in the Unity progress video a couple months back was that those concepts were used in this game. So I won't be going over those, but I'll be going over some of the new stuff that I've been doing over the last couple months. Before I go into the code, I will show you a quick demo of what the game looks like. That way, while I'm going through the code, you can kind of visualize what's happening more. I will warn you though, with this recording software, it doesn't really pick up all the audio sources coming from the game. I It might be because there's quite a few, um, and the recording software just can't quite pick up on all of it. But I'll just warn you that that is a thing. But yeah, here's a little demo of the game. So to begin, um, I I left off on the progress video with AI movement. So the enemy AI movement system works a bit differently than in my progress video. So we actually had a developer working with us on this project at first, but he eventually had to drop out of the project. So I kind of picked up things where he left off. So let's go to the enemy AI movement script. So this was our general script that we used at the beginning. Um, I tried to use inheritance when working with the different enemies and their scripts. Unfortunately, I couldn't get inheritance to work inside of Unity for whatever odd reason. I'm not sure. Um, but yeah, we'll just go over a little bit of how this AI system works. So it grabs a bunch of, uh, components inside of Unity, the nav mesh agent, and we used the nav mesh agent for, the nav mesh system built inside of Unity to um, coordinate how the enemies were going to move. Um, it gets the enemy's position, it gets the position of the player, and the health of the player. And then it has a wander cooldown and attack cooldown, and then it has a bunch of different states like it's stop, walk, and run. And then the raycasts for detecting the player. So this is just some starting conditions to like when the enemy is first when the enemy object is first created, it will have these starting conditions. Um, so the enemy has two different states they'll switch between: the wandering state and the targeting state. So the wandering state is basically the enemy does not know that the player exists, so it kind of just wanders randomly from place to place, um, and it periodically will stop. Um, and then this is its raycast system for detecting the player, um, and it does a bunch of physics stuff that I don't quite understand, but it will basically just in the direction that the enemy is facing, will be spitting out raycasts, and then once it collides with the player, then the enemy state will switch to targeting. Um, and then the targeting state, it will basically follow the player. That's what this is right here. Um, and it will switch to the running speed instead of the walking speed because they will be running or they'll be moving faster when they see the player rather than if they don't see the player. Um, and then after a while, if the player is outside a certain radius, the enemy will return to its wandering state. So I'll go back. I'll go to a specific because this is our general script. So I'll move to like an actual like enemy script right here. So for the most part, it's similar. The only thing that's different is it has an animator. So I basically used the animator component that I addressed in the progress video. And what I did was I kind of linked that up, the animator system to this specific model that I used. So, and every time I would animate an enemy model, it was kind of a different process every time. So that's why I kind of had to have separate scripts anyway. And then we added some sound effects too uh, for the enemies. So let's see where we can see some of the differences right here. So if it's in its wandering state, then the run condition is set to false. So you will not do the running animation. He will not do the idle battle animation. But if his velocity is greater than 0, he'll do the walk animation. And if he isn't, then then the walk is set to false. And then here is I made it so that the enemies will only have their sound effects being played when they know that the player is there or is existent. It makes it a little bit more terrifying that way. But and since we only want to have the audio clip played once, I had to set a Boolean has played. That way, it's not. Sometimes the audio clips would be played multiple times in succession, so it would make your ears bleed. But anyway, so just more conditions with the animator stuff. I had to play around a lot with certain conditions, making sure animations were doing what they're supposed to be doing when the enemy was doing a certain thing, whether walking or running or fighting. And then it has a damage player method. And then this is something I'll talk about a little bit later. But I also made a collider attached to each enemy. Um, that would be a melee box, or sorry, it would be detecting for a melee box. I made a melee box as part of the player component or the player object, and whenever an enemy object was inside this melee box that's attached to the player, then the player could do its melee attack. I added a melee attack. I'll go over that in a little bit. Um, and so how I also made the enemy combat system was if the enemy is in the melee box, not only can the player hit the enemy, but the enemy actually does damage continuously to the player. So that's what that's doing right there. It calls the damage player function. And then it sets its attack cooldown back to 2. That way it's not like rapid fire just hitting the player. It's happening over an increment of time. So next I will talk about um, the health systems. So each enemy and the player both have a certain amount of health. So in this crab um, script, we have the enemy health and we have the max enemy health. And that was important to address for the UI because we have like health bars. So it needs to know what its max and what its current is. So these two methods are used by the UI, or the scripts that use the UI. And then they'll take damage from if the bullet object hits them, which I think I addressed before in my progress video. And then this is where I set a death animation to true if the enemy health is less than or equal to 0, and then the enemy object is destroyed after its death animation happens. So yeah, same thing here with the melee box. I basically put in another death circumstance of like they can die from the melee attacks as well. What else? Oh, I'll show you the health UI script. I'll show you the player health system too. So similar thing with here, we have a max health and then we have like the current player health. I guess while I'm here, I might as well go over the melee stuff. So there's a swing speed and a swing angle. I had to do a lot of research online to figure this stuff out because I'm not an animator at all. So I had to look up a lot of physics stuff. So this is the system. I think that's the animation system. Yeah, that's the animation system for the the um, the axe swing, and then we also have this is the player's damage method for dealing damage to enemies with the axe. Actually, no, this is my. I'm sorry. This is the player melee damages. That's the one that does that. Um, this is where the the player actually takes damage. Um, and then here's a melee cooldown, and then I actually had a restart method for when the player dies, and I'll get into that soon. That'll probably be the next thing I get into, actually. Besides the health UI, I'll just go over this a little bit. But each health bar has a UI, or is a UI, and in an update method, it continually checks the player's max health and then the just the current health, and then it'll put the value of the bar to the current health. Um, so that way it's currently that way it's always updating, and this system is the same for all the enemies as well. All the enemies have their health bars. So now I'll go to the death screen. I believe that's in the player. Yeah. So um, when the player reaches 0, or when the player's health reaches 0, it does a death screen. I'll show you the death screen in the Unity engine soon. Trying to find where it's been a little while since I've worked on this, but somewhere along the way, it will check to see if, yeah, right here, if the player health is less than or equal to 0, and then it'll just do the death method, and then this is the death method. And then it will do, and then if you press Z, I made it so if you press Z when the death screen comes up, you can restart the game. And then I put game over set active to true, and that is what is the actual death screen. It's a UI element. I think it's a panel. So I'll go show you what that looks like in here. I think it'll be better to do it. Yeah. So right now it's disabled because that's the default state of it. But when it's active, when the player's health reaches 0, it looks like this. So everything goes red, and then it says specimen eliminated. Press Z to create new specimen. And once you do press Z, then it'll restart. And the next thing I'll talk about is the player shooting script. So in the progress video, I just kind of had like you had infinite ammo. You could shoot as long as you wanted to. In this, I made a reload system and like a bullet counter system, which I can show you. It says 0 right here, but I'll at the end of this, I'll show you a little demo so you can see what the whole project looks like in action. Or I might, you know what, I'm going to change my mind. I'm actually going to show a demo first and then start this whole video. We'll do that. I'll make it a lot better. But anyway, so there's a bullet counter system where it'll say like how many bullets you have in the clip, and then it'll have like a dat or slash, and then it'll have the max amount of ammo that you have. And I had a bit of trouble figuring it all out. I had a lot of bugs depending on like the state of like how many bullets you had, whether you had a lot of bullets or whether you had close to zero bullets. But in the update function of the player shoot script, if you press R, then it will get the amount of bullets you have and the reload time, and basically depending on how many bullets or what the reload time is, because if the reload time isn't 0, then you don't want to be able to have the player reload yet. So we set once you are able to reload, and then we have a sound effect for reloading as well. So we don't want it playing over and over and over again in rapid succession. So we have another Boolean value, and then we set the reload time back to where it was, and we play the audio clip. And then depending on the amount of bullets you have, it will return a certain amount of bullets. Um, yeah, it's a little interesting how that all worked out. It took some time to figure that all out on why certain things weren't doing what they're supposed to be doing. But anyway, and then if you aren't able to reload and you try reloading, then it will play a different audio clip saying basically you're empty. And then if the max bullets ever reaches below 0, then we just set it back to 0. And then this is just our little timer that we have for the reload time. And then this is also for, I also wanted to give an audio cue for when the player is actually able to reload again. So if they reload, they will hear a sound effect, but then you won't be able to reload for a couple seconds. So, but when it's ready, when the gun is ready to be fired again, then that same audio clip will play again. So the audio clip will actually play twice over 2 seconds, after 2 seconds. And then the last thing I worked on, the main thing that I haven't addressed yet, is I made, you might have seen it in the script, but I have a static class called day that keeps track of the days and your bullets. So basically, from scene to scene, this data is saved between each scene. So there's you start at day 1, you start with a certain amount of bullets, and then we have a whole bunch of getters and setters and methods for controlling bullets, so that when you keep your bullets going from day to day and your day counter is saved. But yeah, and then this data, the day counter actually gets used by the labyrinth generator. I didn't work on the labyrinth generator. Another member of the team worked on that, and that's been his sole thing that he's been working on. Um, and then we had another team member working on more UI stuff and uh, world building and that kind of stuff. So it's been great. It's been a good team collaboration experience, and we're going to continue working on this game, and we're going to continue trying to release it, trying to go through the process of releasing it at some point. But yeah, I just kind of wanted to give more of a rundown of the game and my part in it. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed watching this video.